Guys, welcome back to my channel, LS Vintage Design. I'm Lisa. How's everybody doing? I hope you're having an amazing day. Today, we are talking about adding vintage to your special events and how you can do that. So come on in, get comfy, because this is a fun video. Before we do that though, I want to say if you're new, I want to say welcome and thank you for being here. You are very appreciated. And if you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button with that little bell because it really helps the channel out. We're going to try to hit 1,000 subscribers by the end of the year. I know it seems a little crazy, but we're going to try. So share with your friends, and like I said, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. How do you work vintage into an event? Well, I'm going to give you a lot of different ideas. First, let's start off kind of with the easiest, and that's a baby shower or a baby announcement. Say you just found out you're pregnant and you want to announce it to the world through Instagram. So you're getting your stuff for your photo shoot and you're taking this great picture. It's very special. But you know what? Your photo shoot looks like last year's photo shoot, and the year before that, and the year before that. Do something different. It's time that everybody stops doing the same photo shoots to announce babies. What could you do that utilizes vintage? A couple of things. Vintage vases. They're super cute. You can get them pretty generic. Now this one screams little girl, but you can get very generic baby vases as well. There's little dogs that with generic colors. These would be super cute as one part of your photo. A second part is vintage toys. And you have a lot of options. You could do something like a vintage wooden bear or other type of wooden toy. You could do vintage cars. You could do a vintage baby blanket, a vintage baby outfit. There's any number of things you could use to announce your bundle of joy without looking like last year's and the years before that. Another occasion that's super fun to celebrate and add that vintage touch to are bachelorette parties, bachelor parties. Maybe somebody's having an anniversary and you want to throw them a really cool party that maybe hasn't been done before. What about kind of a speakeasy party? Kind of a full-on fun, you know, like bar scene. But not a bar scene of today, but a bar scene of yesteryear. You can get some great bar sets. You can get highball glasses, vintage glasses. You can get, like I said, vintage bar sets to set around. You can get vintage, you could have everybody dress vintage like flapper. You could put vintage cameras around. You could put vintage decanters, vintage bottles of alcohol. There's a lot of options for a vintage anniversary party or a bachelor party centered on a speakeasy. Again, maybe the person that you're celebrating is not somebody that drinks. We can go to a bar. But maybe it's somebody's like grandma's birthday and you want to do a really cool birthday for her. What about a vintage tea? Now, I host vintage tea parties, but if you wanted to do it yourself, what could you do? You can buy vintage teacups. You can get vintage teapots. You can get vintage coffee pots. You can make it whatever you want it to be. And it's super fun and easy to do. With the vintage tea party, with grandma's party, you could do vintage linens. You could do vintage quilts. Just to tie in something maybe from her childhood or her teenage years. You could do vintage dolls. There's a lot that you could do. Now lastly, say you're celebrating somebody that loves music, whether it's their birthday or maybe they've gotten a music contract or they're getting married or they're having a baby or whatever, but say they love music. What can you do music? Well, of course you can find vintage music books everywhere and make the envelopes for the event out of the vintage sheet music, okay? Other things you can do are use vintage radios. Of course, they only play AM, but, you know, have some vintage radios setting around. This radio is also good if you're having a vintage party celebrating someone that likes Mickey. This is a vintage radio, but it's also vintage Disney, Mickey Mouse. But have some vintage radios placed around the room. Have some vintage instruments. You can always find vintage instruments. Now this one's not for sale, but this electric guitar is actually featured in the Blues Brothers movie. It's hanging on the wall when they're in the music shop with Ray Charles trying to get instruments. So get some music instruments. You can find some. This one was probably expensive. You can find some that are not so expensive and use those to set around. Again, vintage sheet music is great. Vintage albums are also a great thing if somebody loves music. And something that goes with everything I just said are vintage frames. Whether you're making selfie stations or friend stations to take photos, maybe you're doing that baby announcement, set it all inside a frame. Frames are great decor. They add interest as well as vintage baskets. Those are going to add a little something something to your events as well. So guys, I hope you like these ideas of how you can add vintage to your own events, as well as get a vintage keepsake, whether it's for you or the people that are being celebrated. I have a lot of items in my shops. Go check them out. If you have somebody that loves to bake or had a business baking when they were younger, there's a lot of vintage Tupperware. I'm sure it was used at some point. That would be good decor as well. Or if you had somebody that hosted Tupperware parties when they first were coming out and they went into people's homes and they showed people how to burp the new dishes. Vintage Tupperware is great for, creating a photo shoot for that. Just remember, vintage can be used for a lot of things in a lot of different ways. You just have to kind of stretch your imagination to think of some. And if you want a vintage tea party for your next event, but you don't want to put it all together, check out the website. We still have some bookings. We're doing bridal showers, we're doing baby showers, we are doing birthdays. We're celebrating Grandma's birthday at one event. So if you don't want to put it together but you like the idea, head over to the website and book a consultation today. Guys, thanks for being here with us today. I hope you got some ideas for your next birthday, anniversary, happy occasion, because it's always fun to celebrate with vintage and it's something different. It's not something everybody does. Take care. I will see you next time. Bye.